Hey, hey, rock stars. I am back from vacation. Super excited to be here and doing this Facebook Live today for open office hours. I know I haven't been super consistent in the last couple months because of the launch and other things going on. And that's exactly what I want to talk to you guys today about. So there's a few different threads of conversation wrapped up in this topic that I want to discuss with you today. So hopefully I don't meander too much and I kind of stay on point, but there's a lot of really important things and lessons in here that I want to talk to you about. So I see that somebody is watching live. Can you let me know if you hear me okay? Galicia, hey lady. Love you. Thanks for joining me today. So just a sec. I'm having tea this afternoon instead of more coffee. So before I went on vacation, I did a whole Facebook Live on, hey Kelly, I did a whole Facebook Live on feeling stuck and the things that I do to get unstuck and some of the methods that I have to kind of ground myself and get out of my own head and try and move past that feeling, because it's a feeling that we all go through, whether it's personal life or family or goals, or if you have a job or you're working on your business, we all get to a point where we just kind of feel like, meh, and you feel like you're not moving forward. So I went to the beach. We rented a house on the coast for 6 days, and it was my hubby and I's 15-year wedding anniversary. I had it in my head the beginning of the year that we were going to go to Hawaii. Wanted to go to Hawaii, wanted to go someplace warmer, and it was really about the ocean and the beach, because the ocean and the beach, it is totally my happy place. So after the launch happened and I realized, okay, we can afford this, we're going to do this. I realized, thank you, Galicia. I realized that, or I talked to my husband about it, and it turns out he didn't want to go to Hawaii. Hawaii was not his thing. Talk about, right? There's always something to work on with communication. So he's much more of a mountains, inland kind of person. He was like, what about Yellowstone? I was like, no, I'm not. I have to put my feet in the ocean. So our compromise was finding a house that we had all to ourselves. The three of us, we brought our kiddo with us for a family vacation, just the three of us. And we did that. So I brought a couple books to read. I, knew that I would be kind of keeping one eye on my business, but not really. I put my out of office responder on, all that good stuff. And just, we had family time at the beach, but I also had the opportunity to go out by myself on the beach and walk and put my feet in the water and beach comb and, all of that stuff. And there were a few things that came up for me last week while all of this was happening. So I was thinking about, why do I feel so stuck? Why do I feel like I can't move forward? And what I realized was I was not being consistent with my business. I felt like I was dropping the ball. I feel like my systems aren't where they need to be. There are so many to-dos that I have that isn't just like a checklist, but it's also to-dos like these are things that I want to implement that I know are going to make a huge impact on my business. Tightening up my email marketing, getting my Pinterest ads course ready to go, doing Get Noticed, Get Paid again in September, all of this stuff. And the reason I was feeling so stuck is because when I got into launch mode with Get Noticed, Get Paid, all of the other foundational stuff for my business and my digital marketing totally fell through the cracks. So I'm talking about my cues for my social media platforms, Pinterest and Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. I am talking about my blogs. I am talking about my email marketing. Hey, Melanie. All of the stuff that I was like, okay, I've got this going and rolling, and I've planned it out and whatever. As soon as I tried to up level my biz and take on something new and something else, everything else kind of fell apart. So consistency is something that I teach with social media. I know how to do it, but it was something that I wasn't able to do it for myself when I was adding new things. So I spent a lot of time while I was out walking on the beach thinking about not really like beating myself up and what am I doing wrong, but okay, how am I going to fix this? And there have been many times where I have fallen into the trap of I'm going to work more, I'm going to stay up late, I'm going to work harder, I'm going to try some new tool. Maybe I'll try using this different social media schedule, or that will make it easier to whatever. Solving all the problems on my own. And what I realized is that is exactly where I was stuck. I cannot do everything on my own, and I have reached the max of what I can do for my business with the schedule that I have prioritized. Meaning, I will never be the entrepreneur that consistently puts aside family time for the sake of my business. I am very clear that Fridays I spend with my daughter. There are some times where I can get a few things done for work. Most of the time I can't. I am not someone that is going to stay up until midnight working to hustle. I am committed to my family, and I started this business because of the lifestyle and the priorities that are the most important thing to me. So that's non-negotiable. Right? There's every once in a while where I have a project or something I'm starting, like launching, get noticed, get paid, where yes, I will put in more time. And yes, there might be a couple nights where I tell my husband, you know what, you've got to do bath and bedtime on your own because I really need to knock this out. But that is so few and far in between. And it's just on a whole, not negotiable for me. So when I look at my schedule and I look at, okay, I work like half a day on Sunday, like kind of planning and prepping and touching base and having like CEO time to look at my business, you know, from 10,000 feet on Sunday. And then really my work time is Monday through Thursday. So that being said, I kind of came back to this realization as I'm walking on the beach and kind of looking around and you know, looking for treasures and all that kind of stuff, that I've reached the max of what I can do. And if I don't do something differently, I'm going to be in the same place. I'm going to be stuck in the same place. At the same time, one of the books that I brought with me was You Are a Badass at Making Money. So this is a book by Jen Sincero. She wrote You Are a Badass, I guess, a couple years ago, which was a great book, a great read, definitely about laws of attraction and manifesting and kind of mindset and attitude and positive vibes and all that kind of stuff. And she just released, I'm not sure how long ago, one about making money. And this book was so incredibly triggering for me. There were several times over the course of the week that I had to stop and put it down and walk away and couldn't pick it back up because it was like, yeah. Kelly, yes, you should read this book. So one of the things she was talking about, and one of the things that I keep hearing successful entrepreneurs talk about, is the outsourcing. And I am definitely of the mindset, which I am trying to break. I've read the first Bad Habit, loved it, life-changing, so good. Yes. So I'm definitely of the mindset of if you want something done right, do it yourself. I was always the kid in school with group projects that was like, just let me do it. I want it done my way. I want it done right. I take on everything. Like that's just, I know that's a part of my personality and I really struggle with it. But taking that time out from the beach or at the beach, taking time out from my business and really thinking about why I was so stuck, what my patterns are with my business, which is when I take on something new, my foundation starts to fall apart, which means it's not a super strong foundation. And so my answer is starting to outsource some of my systems and my processes. So I just signed on with Miss Kelly, who is here in this group. If any of you need help with your business systems, an extra hand, whatever it is. I have known Kelly for, I think, a couple years now. And we were talking yesterday as I was telling her kind of giving her the download of kind of where I was at and what I was thinking and my priorities, that she has been on my list for months. And the reason she stayed, hey, Colette, the reason she stayed on my list instead of pulling that trigger, so to speak, is simply because I wasn't ready and I was still stuck in this. I can do it all myself. Hey, Peter. So Kelly is going to be helping me with some things I have identified are big holes in my foundation for my consistency with my business. So that's one piece of the consistency, getting unstuck, realizing you can't do it all, getting help, and trusting that somebody else can help you and you don't have to do everything yourself. I have a really hard time with that. So the other piece of consistency that I wanted to talk about goes way back to a blog that I wrote when I first started my business, going out on my own, and kind of that roller coaster when you're starting your business of like, 1 minute you're, high as a kite and just like firing on all cylinders, insert whatever cheesy euphemism, just on top of the world. And then the next minute you're like, oh my God, I'm failing. I can't do anything. I'm never going to make any money. I'm going to have to go get a job. And just that, right? So the blog that I wrote, I'll link it in here after we're done. It was called 7 Steps to Consistency and How Beachcombing Mirrors Business. So I remembered this blog because of the beachcombing. And I'll give you the Cliff Notes version because it's a pretty lengthy, been there, done that, haven't we all? It's a pretty lengthy version. But basically, when I was in San Diego and I was a special agent, I did not own my time. I did not own my schedule. I owned nothing about my life. Yes, Galicia, I will absolutely. Yay for beachcombing. So I was working with a coach at the time, and what we realized is that every week I needed to ground myself. So this might seem obvious to people at this point, but several years ago, gosh, this must be like almost 10 years ago at this point, I had no idea about any of this stuff. Grounding, what the hell is grounding? I had no idea. So what I knew with my schedule, with what I was doing in law enforcement, is that the only day that I could count on mostly having off, like 90% of the time, was Saturday. So I committed to every Saturday, I would get up at the crack of dawn and go to the beach, which is much easier to do in San Diego than Portland, and just walk. And sometimes I was there for 20 minutes. Sometimes I was there for an hour and a half. I would get up as soon as I opened my eyes and feet hit the ground, and I got the largest travel mug of coffee that I could possibly fit in my cup holder in my car, and I went straight down there, and literally sometimes I almost ran to put my feet in the water. And it was the dog beach in San Diego called Ocean Beach. There's a dog section. And what I loved is that dogs know what you're doing. Like, they pick up on your vibe. And the days that I was beachcombing and just kind of grounding and resetting for the week, all these dogs would come up to me all the time and say hi and, all this kind of stuff. And the days that I was in a funk and just couldn't get in my headspace, totally different feel. So anyway, I don't know why I picked this beach, But there were a few things over the course. I did this for 3 years, every Saturday, with the exception of, I could probably count the number of times I missed a Saturday in 3 years on one hand. And it was usually due to, something happened with my job where I was called out and I was sitting in a car up in LA for 20 hours, and that just obviously wasn't going to happen. Or some family holiday or, whatever. But there were a few things I noticed. So I never knew what kind of morning it was going to be for beachcombing. Okay. I'm a treasures person. I am a natural collector, accumulator. I love treasures, shells, rocks, whatever. So this particular ocean is where the San Diego River meets the ocean. And what that meant was that the shoreline was constantly changing. So I'd never know what the beach was going to look like when I would arrive in the morning. There were some mornings where I would walk and I'd come over that dune and I'd see the beach and it would be covered in shells and rocks and all sorts of pretty wonderful things. And send you some shark's teeth. Nice. Never found one of those. So it would just be covered. I couldn't walk anywhere that I wasn't walking on shells. And I would come home with my pockets overflowing. I had a beach vest. It was a vest that had all sorts of pockets where I could put my phone and I could put shells, and it was waterproof and whatever. Kind of silly. And those mornings where there were just an abundance of treasures and so many things, I wasn't thinking about business. I wasn't thinking about what I needed to work on. I wasn't thinking about where am I at in my life. I wasn't thinking about anything other than treasure hunting. And it let me get out of my head and just go for a walk and get some exercise. And I was usually humming to myself and drinking my coffee. And it was just great. And I'd come home and be like, yes, awesome morning at the beach. Totally cool. Then some mornings I would show up and there was nothing there but seaweed, and it stunk. And it probably took me a full year to not be disappointed when I would show up to the beach and there was nothing there for me. And so I learned, and I did this for 3 years, and I learned several lessons that somehow I was able to tease out of all of this. One, the mornings where there was nothing there is like the day you lose a client, don't get a client, you're in a funk in your business. It gave me the space and time to touch base with myself and what I was doing, because I wasn't looking at shells. I wasn't kind of distracted and having fun and, all this kind of stuff. There was nothing to do but walk and think. So the times where I showed up and initially, for the first year, I was disappointed. It was because I needed to be paying attention. It was because I needed, and not to be all woo-woo, I'm kind of woo-woo, kind of not. But there were times, it was obvious. I was in a funk and I needed to be paying attention to what was going on in my life, whether it was personal, whether it was business, whether it was work, whatever, whether it was taking care of myself. Basically, I didn't need any distractions. I needed to be walking and sipping coffee and thinking. And the days where you show up and there's a ton of shells and everything is peachy keen and you're having a great time and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all my treasures, look at all my, whatever. Those are the good client days, or the good customer days, or the good, everything's firing on all cylinders and you go to bed happy and everything's so wonderful. Pretty much exactly the same. As far as shells equaling good business days and stinky seaweed equaling not good business days. But they both had a very specific purpose. The other thing that I learned over the course of 3 years in doing this was that it didn't matter how many days they were stinky seaweed days. If I showed up consistently every Saturday, at the end of 3 years, I had vases and vases and vases of shells. that didn't mean like having a bad beach morning, meaning no treasures and just time to sit and think and whatever. That meant nothing as far as the cumulative effect of that consistency and that commitment. The cumulative effect was that I had some amazing treasures at the end of 3 years and an abundance of really cool shells and items. So the third thing that I noticed is that there were patterns in everything. So I pretty much showed up at the same time every Saturday. And as you know, tides change throughout the year, the seasons change, the currents change, the temperature changes. But I showed up usually around 7 a.m. every Saturday morning, which before kids was like super, super early. Now I'm like, oh, that's sleeping in. I knew in the winter I was going to find sand dollars. I knew in the summer I was going to find mussels. I knew if I showed up and it was low tide, it was going to be different. When I showed up and it was high tide, it was going to be different. The patterns that revealed themselves by doing this consistently and being okay with it changing, can there be a better analogy of going with the flow than I'm just showing up and the ocean's doing its thing and I'm here to learn and take care of myself and give myself some time and some space. But the key for that was if I was not consistent and I was not committed, I would have never learned those patterns. So what I did when I moved up here was I took 90% of my treasures. I wrote something about just this kind of thing. Cool. I have no doubt. You get where I'm coming from, Peter, and you too, Kelly. I took most of my treasures. There are a couple that are just with me forever. And I took them all to the beach, my favorite beach up here in Oregon, and I buried them in the sand for somebody else. And for me, that was a closing of that chapter in my life and being open to what's new for me here in Oregon. Very symbolic for me. Yes, woo-woo. But it was very much, it got to a point where I got all these treasures, and when I look at my vases and vases of stuff, it would take me back to hating my job in law enforcement, not having control over my schedule, how much I desperately needed that Saturday morning in order to just be okay for the following week in getting through. Still a thing. So that was that for me. Give me a second. Had no idea so much of that was still there. So, taking all of those treasures that served me so well at the time and kept me grounded. Oh my God, you guys, all your love. Thank you. That was a time and a place in my life, and I am so grateful for it, and I'm done with it. And now I am ready for the next thing. So I can't believe how emotional I am. Oh my gosh. Oh, Galicia, you're so sweet. So the lesson is, for me, a couple things. One, be consistent and committed in showing up. Whatever that is for you, whether it's showing up for your family, whether it's showing up for yourself, if you're working on your health and wellness, showing up for your business, and be consistent and be committed, and it will happen over time. Yes, powerful stuff. Thank you. It will happen over time. It's not going to happen overnight, and there will be shitty, stinky days, and that's okay, because in the long run, you are going to end up ahead. I learned from your experiences. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Galicia. Thank you. The second is what I first was talking about in the broadcast, Facebook Live, which is that I really got connected with why I was stuck in my business and how it came back to a lack of consistency and not having as strong a foundation as I need to have to be able to get to the next level in my business. So, I don't know that I have much else to say about that. That was more than I expected to kind of come out. So I hope it was helpful. Hey, Amy. I hope it was helpful. And yeah, I will link you guys to that blog. And if you're watching this later and you have any questions or comments or whatever, please let me know. My goal, what I realized, oh, Julia, you're welcome. So one of the things that I realized when I, literally when we got to the beach house, I was like, feet in the water now. I need to find what that Saturday morning thing is for me here. And we have been here, July 4th will be 6 years, and I have yet to find that here without having to drive an hour and a half each way to the coast. And I need to have that weekly grounding session again. So I need to create the time in my already very short work week, need to create the time to find out where else I can stick my feet in the water here. And even if it's 20 minutes while I have a cup of coffee, it needs to happen. So thank you all for watching and putting up with my inconsistency over the last couple months as I've been trying to figure out the next level of my business and stay consistent with providing value to you guys. So I appreciate you sticking with me. Everybody have a great rest of their week, and I will talk to you all soon. See ya.